Billings, something that Billings residents have desired for a very long time. We thank you to the jury, to Brett, Gloria, and everyone to be able to acknowledge this project, and appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Patrick, and congratulations. Well, there we have it, and I think we got it done in time. I hope next year we need a lot more time. I think these 7 projects show not only the impact that MEDA members have across the state, but also the wide variety of projects that we work on. And I'm sure that you're just eagerly thinking about your nominations for next year. I think this is a wonderful transition into the next section of the conference, which is about storytelling. And I have to sign off for a conflicting conference, but I really want to thank the jury again for their work on this, and all of the award winners and all of the MEDA members who are working so hard to make things happen across the state. I have to sign off, but congratulations, Jim. Well earned, well deserved. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Brett, not Russ, Brett. So again, thank you for making all of that happen. We have to work on this. We want this to be an hour long, an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours long for 3 minutes for all of the awards in the future. But we are going to continue to move on. And Gloria, why don't you hold up a clock? We want to present to Mr. Jim Atchison, the Anthony J. Preedy Champion of Economic Development Award winner. If you don't know Jim, he's one of those people you just need to know. He is one of the sweetest people, I think, except for Gloria. He's one of the sweetest people out there that I think that we all can run into, and just love working with Jim anytime that we can, and everything that he does for his community. And I think John Williams will present him a similar clock in the very near future. Julie, if you want to say anything else to Jim just about his impact to the community?
Jim, I just wanted to let you know I really wanted to be there today, but I'm not anxious to come to your community right now because of some of the difficulties you guys are having with COVID. But John Williams was going to be over this morning to present your clock, and he does have it. However, the judge had come down with COVID, so he is with staff at Colstrip City Hall this morning doing some briefing and sanitizing, I believe. But Jim, congratulations. I've worked with you for 13 years, and it's been an absolute honor to work with you, and I have truly enjoyed the projects that we have worked on and the impact that we've been able to make in our region.
Excellent. Thank you, Julie. And again, thank you, Jim, and all of the other Impact Award winners. Again, what's interesting is seeing Patrick in Big Sky EDA talking about a reuse of the old Corette plant, having the excitement coming out of Shoto, and just everything that Adam does over in Anaconda. Those are all great things, in the development going on in Great Falls.
Ryan, I do have a special message for Jim to wrap this up. It's very low tech. I hope you can all hear.
I hope all is going well with all of you. It is unfortunate that we can't all be together, but as usual, Gloria has worked her magic, and I know this conference will be a great success. Montana is fortunate to have your individual and collected professional expertise, especially during these difficult times. As I've stated many times, you all are the economic and community development specialists that will continue to blaze the trail to prosperity. Your continued commitment will be the determining factor in leading Montanans to beneficial outcomes during these troubling times. Please do not underestimate the value that you bring in ensuring that your constituents are afforded the best opportunity to compete on a level playing field. we are all very fortunate to have had over these years MEDA, a truly professional organization with expert and extremely devoted leadership. I wish you all safekeeping, and of course, congratulate and thank Jim for his long and dedicated contributions.
There we go. Gloria, that worked very well. And if I understand, that was about the 4th recording, and there were a few expletives in the first couple when it didn't work out so well. But
Yeah, those of you that know Tony, he gave it a 4th try and came out without any swear words.
so again, thank you, Jim, for everything you do and everything you do to the community out there. Do you have any wise sage words for us?
Well, I have a few. Thank you, Brian and Gloria, for that, and Julie for those nice comments, and those that are contributing via the chat line. I'm certainly honored and humbled to be selected for this year's Tony Preedy Award, and it was a big wow when Brian called me the other day and told me about that, and so, like Julie mentioned, we have a special team over here, and I view this as a team award. And those of you that know, we have a very passionate and productive staff with Julie and Pam Hill that have been here many years. So we work insane hours. We do a lot of things, lots of aspirin. So thank you to Julie. And also I'd like to thank our board of directors who are very supportive and provide that leadership over the years as well. To be mentioned with Tony Preedy and the previous award winners like Jim Davison and John Rogers is quite special, and also to be able to listen and learn over the years to those like Andy Poole and Liz Ching and of course Herb Kulo, the original Dog and Pony Show guy, and so we love Herb, and I learned a lot from Herb, and just very special people, of course. And then to work with, the Eastern Montana Impact Coalition with Jason Riddle and Leslie Messer up in Sydney, and of course, Martin DeWitt, been very rewarding. And we did a lot of good over here in Eastern rural Montana. And now a new generation of leaders are coming up with Beth Epley and Tori up at Great Northern. And last but not least, Gloria, I'd like to say thanks to you and all you've provided. You've certainly been a godsend to myself and other people that are in MEDA for your support and leadership and organizational skills. And for some of the new people, and I know I'm on borrowed, I got a minute here. So anyway, for some of the new people to MEDA, this is really one big family, and I would encourage you or suggest to plug into the system, the MEDA system. Help is there. The infrastructure is there for delivering assistance to you, no matter if you live in Eureka or Ekalaka or Plentywood or Dillon, Havard, Billings, Colstrip to Missoula. It doesn't matter. The help is there because we are actually all in this together. So this is appropriately named for this conference. It's a people business, and the relationships that we've been building for many, many years are now blossoming and becoming productive and fruitful. And so thank you for that. That's what it's all about. Economic development is a team sport, and it's certainly a people business. So that's one thing we've always tried to stress over here in southeastern part of the state with our team, with Julie and Pam and our board. So once again, this means a lot to me. Thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to sharing this with the rest of our SEMDC team. So thank you, Brian. Thank you, Gloria. Thank you, Tony.
Again, congratulations, Jim, and thanks for everything. Julie?
Jim, I was just going to invite you to click on your chat button because I know how techy you are, but so many people have sent you congratulations. So take a moment to click on the chat button and read those.
Excellent. Again, thanks, Jim, and everybody else. Russ, why don't we move right into introduction for something I think we all need to do better at, and that's tell our story. So Russ, can you introduce our guest?
I would be honored to introduce Mark Moss. I've always been of a belief, and I learned long ago, that how you start a story is as important as how you end it. Without a memorable opening, you may have already lost your audience. With a memorable opening, you are starting a journey that more people will want to follow. I love reading first lines of great books. And I won't ask everybody to comment, but you can take your own guesses. It was a pleasure to burn. Fahrenheit 451. We were somewhere around Barstow on the edge of the desert when the drugs began to take hold. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, Hunter S. Thompson. It was a bright, cold day in April and the clocks were striking 13. 1984. Call Me Ishmael, Moby Dick. In our family, this is the best one. In our family, there was no clear line between religion and fly fishing. A river runs through it. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. That's A Tale of Two Cities. Everybody knows that. And a great one. It was a cold and stormy night. Snoopy. Hold on here. This isn't moving right. Just a second. Stories can change history. Stories can change lives. Stories can move mountains of sentiment or influence or power and unlock the opportunity you're proposing. Mark Moss is a self-propelled force in Montana. His Tell Us Something events in the state have been helping people tell their stories better for many years. He helps storytellers from the community share their true personal stories from memory and without notes to mold highlights of their life to a compelling 8 to 10 minute presentation that can leave their audience cheering or crying. I've done both. But in both cases, moved to a place the speaker wanted to help them find. Tell Us Something inspires more understanding, acceptance. I just lost my place, hold on. Because if I do this verbatim, you'd get all bored. And empathy within our community. MEDA is pleased to offer its members a multi-day course where each of you can improve your storytelling skills so that your efforts to educate, encourage, and guide the people of Montana to an improving economy and the lives we all strive to enjoy. When appropriate, he'll wear the hat. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, Mark Moss has a story to tell.
When he came in through the visitor center door there in Mammoth Hot Springs, his eyes were red and he looked pretty disheveled. I was a park ranger in Yellowstone National Park, and this was in 1999. The roads had closed in most of the park. As most of us know, the park is closed to vehicle traffic after, well, it depends on when the snow falls, but usually sometime mid-October. And it was a pretty windy day. It was cold, and it was pretty slow in the visitor center until Gary arrived. And he's probably in his late 50s, early 60s, and he was near tears. I said, "How can I help you?" And he said, "I can't believe it. I can't believe the park's closed." And I said, "Well, the park isn't closed." And I immediately went into, I have to fix this mode. And he said, "Well, the person at the entrance station said the park is closed." And she slammed the door on me. And I said, "You mean she slammed the window on you?" And already I'm trying to correct him and help him. And behind me, Fuzzy John, I can feel him tapping on my shoulder. And Fuzzy John is what I would consider lifelong seasonal worker at Yellowstone. This is his 10th year in the park. And he's about 5'3". He's got an afro like Bob Ross and big thick glasses, a beard like Grizzly Adams, and a big friendly smile. And he says, "Hey, Mark." And he's like wiping chicken soup off of his beard. He was in the back having his lunch. He said, "Is it okay if I talk to this gentleman?" And I said, "Absolutely." And I stood back. I was a newer park ranger, and I knew a lot about the park, and I was able to answer, basic questions about when do deer turn into elk and, you know, standard questions like that. John stepped in and said, "Hi, welcome to Yellowstone. My name's John. What's your name?" And the guy said, "My name is Gary." John said, "I'm really sorry to hear what happened to you at the entrance station. I would like to talk about that. But first, can we pretend that I'm the first park ranger you've ever met?" And Gary said, "Sure, we can try that." And so John said, "Great, welcome to Yellowstone. Gary, what do you want to see when you're here?" And Gary's starting to, you can see him sort of relax a little bit. And he says, "Well, I really want to see Old Faithful, and I really want to see some wildlife, and I want to go on some hikes. You know, I'm from Indianapolis, and I've saved for 3 years to come to Yellowstone." And I'm watching Gary sort of relax into this conversation. And John says, "Well, that's awesome. You can do that." He pulls out a map and he says, "Let's talk about what we can see." So we're here in Mammoth Hot Springs, and the road all the way to Cook City is open. That road is required to be open because if it wasn't, Cook City would be snowed in for the entire winter. So that is why we plow that road, and there's lots of stuff that you can do and see all along that road. You won't be able to see Old Faithful, but you will be able to see lots of thermal features here in Mammoth Hot Springs. And what I love about the thermal features in Mammoth is they change so dramatically, sometimes day to day. You know, the travertine grows 22 inches a year in Mammoth, whereas say take Old Faithful, it only grows 5 or 6 centimeters a year. So the change is dramatic. And I can tell you, you know, in the summertime, I lead different tours throughout Mammoth Hot Springs. And the night before, I always go down and I check out what's happening so that in the morning when I lead the tour, I'll be able to talk accurately about what's happening with the hot springs. And one day I was down there and there was a guy and he had, you know, those old cameras, and he had the cover on. It was a large format camera. And he was taking a picture of Liberty Cap. And his wife was standing outside and he said, "Betty, this thing looks like a giant penis." And I'm standing right next to him. And he goes, and he pulls the thing off and he goes, "Don't you think so?" And I said, "Sir, you're not the first person to say that." And he got back underneath. And so Mammoth is incredible. Lots of great thermal features there. As you go down towards Cook City, you'll be able to see there's a waterfall right here, Undine Falls, and you can stop and check that out. Pretty cool. All sorts of neat stuff to see along the way, but what I really love is the Lamar Valley. People call it the Serengeti of the Yellowstone. Once, I watched wolves circling a bison calf. And there were about 4 wolves. This bison calf wasn't alone. His mother was there. And she was charging at the wolves, trying to get them away, protecting her young. She was using her horns and trying to get the wolves away. I mean, it was the most beautiful piece of nature that I've ever witnessed, I think. And she accidentally hooked the bison calf with her horn and threw her own calf up in the air, 20 feet in the air. It fell on its back. The wolves backed away. They knew their job was done. They were about to eat grandly. And the mama kind of grieved for a while. They let her do her thing, and then she backed away. They went in and had an incredible feast. Some people, you know, they think that's really sad. I think that is science and nature in action, and I think it was beautiful, and it was touching to watch. There's also plenty of hiking available. There's Slough Creek. Where is it now? It's been a while since I've looked at this map. But there's Slough Creek is up near Pebble Creek. And, oh, here it is. And there's a nice trail along there. Lots of opportunity to see moose and things like that all along in there. Be careful when you're watching for moose because they are pretty dangerous. All different things that you can do. And I would probably, I mean, how long do you have here, Gary? Well, Gary said, I scheduled to be here the whole week. And John says, awesome. That's great. You can really just take your time and go back and keep exploring things that you enjoyed. And when you come back into Mammoth, the hotel here is incredible. Lots of history. The map on the wall is amazing. It's made up of all different kinds of woods, this map of the United States. You're gonna have a blast here in Yellowstone. And Gary's like, thank you so much, John. And he grabs his map and he starts to walk away. And John says, Gary, wait. Let's talk about your experience at the entrance station. And Gary says, oh, I had forgotten all about that. I'm sorry for the way you were treated, John said. On behalf of the National Park Service and of Yellowstone, I apologize. And Gary said, you have changed the way I think about the National Park Service. This is the first big park I've ever visited, and I will always come back. And thank you so much. And I'll stop back and let you know how my trip goes. So Gary leaves. And I look at John and I say, what did you just do there? He said, I listened. I listened to Gary and I engaged him on the level that he needed to be engaged. I wanted him to have a good experience. I have pride in the National Park Service. I have pride in my job, but I wanted to first take care of Gary. And I showed him the pride that I have by sharing the stories that I have about that stretch of road to get him excited about the time that he's going to spend here. And I walked away from that conversation and that whole experience, having learned more about customer service and more about showing instead of telling than any conference or workshop could have taught me. Thank you. So let's break that down, right? I already told you that story is a lot about customer service and it's a lot about listening. But I also think it's about mentoring. John, you know, having been such an established and experienced ranger, could have waited in the back, watched what I did with Gary, and come out and told me later what I did wrong and how to correct it. Instead, he took over with my consent and showed me the way to handle this conversation. It was awesome. And I felt like it was magic. He had empathy for the visitor. And the backstory is the person down at the entrance station got reprimanded by her supervisor. We engaged with her supervisor and found out why she was doing that. She was having some sort of bad day, not an excuse, but you know, she got talked to as well. And Gary got this incredible education about the park as well. And he did check back all throughout his week to check in and say, hey man, this is amazing, thank you so much, and shared his own stories throughout the day. So I wasn't going to open my time with a story, but the way that Russ introduced me, I thought I really had to. As he said, my name is Mark Moss and I run Tell Us Something. And Tell Us Something started in 2011. Missoula being the size that it is, I don't think that we have a big enough community to have a monthly storytelling event that wouldn't be the same number of, the same storytellers each time, or the amount of people arriving each time. So we have a quarterly event here in Missoula, and in the days when we could get together in person, we would sell out the Wilma Theater, so 825 people. And 825 people are coming to hear their community tell stories. I don't announce ahead of time who the storytellers are. So they're coming to listen to their community, not Russ Fletcher, not Mark Moss, not Gloria. They're coming to listen to their community. And the big rules at Tell Us Something are no calls to action, no hate speech, no political anything, no gratuitous drug use, sex, or violence. That's it. I say it's open to all ages, although sometimes there are adult themes, and we do have adult stories in adult language. But I've seen kids there as young as 12 and 13. So what I see, as Russ said, we have people laughing and crying at these events, but what's really happening is people's minds are being changed. The empathy that's being built, that's a muscle, and it needs to be flexed. The empathy muscle is being built by the community actively listening to each other. And when I listen to the awards ceremony that happened this morning, I'm thinking about ways that you could be talking about your accomplishments through story. In this setting, with this audience, it's important to go through all of the technical and logistical things. But if you're talking maybe to a news organization or maybe potential investors, getting a personal story might be a really good way to change minds. Or if you're trying to think about persuasion, and maybe you're up in eastern Montana where people are big into the extraction industry and you're wanting them to change maybe to wind, telling a personal story about a success that you've had with somebody who has made that switch might be a useful way to go. So my thought is that showing, not telling, is always more effective. And I've experienced that in my own life with storytelling. Two of the stories that come to mind are, one is this woman who was U.S. Marine Corps. She was in the United States Marine Corps. And she tells a story about surviving sexual assault while she was a Marine. And the assault was coming from her fellow Marine Corps members. It was a powerful story. About a year later, I run into someone on the sidewalk the night of a Tell Us Something event. The event is sold out. She asks me, Mark, do you have any extra tickets? And I said, I don't. I mean, that's what sold out means. And she said, great, that's fine. Can you please give this to Victoria, the storyteller? And then there was a letter there for me as well. I said, no problem. So, I knew that Victoria wasn't there that night and I would have to run into her later and give her the letter. I was busy with all of my duties. I didn't have time to read the letter, so I tucked it into my vest, went out, introduced the first storyteller, got everything going, the show was rolling, and had a drink of water, sat down backstage to read the letter. The letter was about 4 pages handwritten, and it described this person's experience listening to Victoria's story. She said she had been suicidal for months. She wanted to jerk the wheel every time she went across the bridge on the river. And she was at the event, and that story changed her life. She said it saved her life. She went home and wrote in her journal until dawn, called her therapist and had an emergency appointment and read everything that she had written to her therapist. And she explicitly said, that story saved my life. So that story comes to mind. And the other one is the theme was Stranger in a Strange Land. And this guy's 7 feet tall, no exaggeration, black guy from California, lives here in Missoula now. His thesis is, you can't be curious and angry at the same time. And so he wants to understand. And in 2016, he goes to the Trump rally in Missoula. The whole story is about why he wants to go, his experience getting there, and then finally, while he's there, he's in line with some MAGA hat people. And instead of being afraid of them or attacking them or saying that he disagrees with them, he just starts asking questions and starts to have a conversation with them. He doesn't betray his political leanings at all. He's just engaging with them on a human level. And at the end of the story, they say, you know, we don't generally wear these hats. And he said, why? And they said, we're afraid that the liberals are going to beat us up. And he said, oh, so you can take your hats off and feel safer. And they said, yeah. And he said, oh, I can't do that with my skin. And that was the end of the story. And he walks off the stage, and you could feel the air get sucked out of the room. But he didn't preach, and he didn't ask anybody to change their behavior. He was just showing how others' behavior affects him personally. So that's the way the stories come together and the way they affect people. And Russ and Gloria have asked me to bring my expertise and my workshop skills to you. And so I will be providing that service to anybody that wants to sign up. We'll go through story structure. We'll practice telling stories with each other. We'll practice giving feedback. And, you know, in this setting, obviously, there might be calls to action, and there probably should be. And so we'll talk about ways to do that as well during the workshop. Where are we at for time? So I wanted to try, I know the people before us ran a little long. I wanted to try and cut mine a little shorter, not a half an hour short, but give some time for question and answers. But before I do that, wanted just to give you a little bit of my background. I was trained as an English teacher in Ohio, in Akron, Ohio specifically. And Russ, the first quote the first opening line that you used was actually really dear to my heart, because it was a turning point in my teaching career. I was teaching Fahrenheit 451 to a bunch of sophomores. And I was reading from the book, blah, 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 blah. And the shy kid in the back raised his hand and he said, my book doesn't say that. And I said, what does your book say, Terry? And he said, well, my book says blah, 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 goddamn, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, Terry, where'd you get your book? He said, well, I bought it from the independent bookstore down the street. I said, oh, fascinating. Where did everybody else get their books, including me? Oh, we all bought them from the school bookstore. Now, as a teacher, I know that I'm not allowed to have an opinion about decisions that the school board makes. I also know that if I don't address this issue right now, all of my credibility is gone. And so I just asked the question. We're reading a book that's been censored. The book's main theme is about censorship. Does anybody have an opinion about that? And we spent the rest of the class. I just listened, and they made their opinions known. And they were pretty upset that this decision had been made by the school board. I was called out by the principal later and reprimanded for having that conversation. And it was then that I decided I was done. I'm not going to engage with all of the political baloney that's required to be a teacher and try to teach in this system. And that's when I left teaching formally and went to Yellowstone to teach in the world's best classroom. Of course, plenty of other censorship that needs to happen in Yellowstone, right? Like, for example, I can't give my opinion about a controversial subject like wolves. I have to just present the facts, and that's fine, because it is a controversial subject, and we do need to hear from many different viewpoints. But my job in uniform is to simply present the park stance and then listen to other people and answer their questions. But Fahrenheit 451, turning point in my life for sure. Yeah, grew up in Akron, Ohio, got trained at Kent State University as an English teacher, after a divorce, left in 1997 to move to Yellowstone, and was a senior seasonal park ranger there through 2001, then moved to Bozeman and spent some time in Bozeman before moving to Missoula. And in 2011, started Tell Us Something. And my thought in starting it was what I said earlier, that I wanted to build community, but not tell people that's what I'm doing, trick them into coming, and have them be entertained, but really also be educated and build that empathy muscle. And so since 2011, we have done quarterly events in Missoula and have expanded into Helena in, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. Did a couple of events in Butte as well. And this year, the goal was, since it was our 10-year anniversary, we were going to do events in Helena, Butte, Bozeman, Livingston, Gardner, Missoula. I was trying to get a thing at Tippett Rise, and I'm also a team of one. So I do have some volunteers, but I go to each community and I recruit storytellers from each community. And so it's not like I've got a touring show. And then from each show, I produce a podcast of all of the stories, and there is a YouTube channel as well. And it is also my belief that if we're going to have video, that it needs to be accessible beyond closed captioning. Closed captioning not accurate. And so I hire American Sign Language interpreters for all of the events as well. That's expensive, but I think it's important, and it's something that even if there are no deaf people in the audience, I think it's important to set the standard and to also encourage others to provide that same service. So that's my background. That's what I've been doing. You can get the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, or you can stream it at tellussomething.org. Because of COVID, we haven't been able to have any live in-person events, and a couple of the streaming events that we had, although they were well attended, nobody paid. Actually, the third event that we had, I charged tickets, and we didn't sell very many tickets. So because I don't have the events to produce the podcasts from, I pivoted this year. And now the podcast for now is that I'm interviewing past storytellers about their stories, and also what have they been up to lately. And I cut that interview down into a listenable 20-minute section, and then play the story that they shared in the past. This week's podcast came out today. It is an interview that was actually 2 hours long, and I cut it into 2 episodes because the first section is about BIPOC and racism in specifically Montana and Missoula, and how we as whites can be better allies. It was a fantastic interview that came out last week, and then this week the focus is specifically about the storyteller's story, Joseph Grady. So that's what I have to say, and I'll open it up now to questions.
Before we get into questions, I wanted to mention that Mark sent me a very interesting story this morning, The Science of Storytelling, What Listening to a Story Does to Our Brains. It's posted in the chat section, along with the link to Tell Us Something, as well as an invite to sign up for the training next week. And the interesting thing, and I was really enthusiastic about this, was that there will be, was it 5 days of training? And then what we're going to try and do is have an event sometime soon after that, where we can all share the stories that we've learned how to tell maybe a little better, which I think is something we can all benefit from. And I have to say personally, I've attended a large number of the Tell Us Something events, not as many as I wish I could, but it's a community event. You get there early because you're going to run into a lot of people, and you know you're going to have a good time that evening. So it's something that I've hoped that MEDA could get behind, helping to expand Tell Us Something to more of Montana. But let me open it up. Anyone have any questions about what will be included in the training, or what you think about this?
One thing I will say too, Russ, is I'm careful to refer to those who participate in Tell Us Something as storytellers, because and the big reason for that is if we hear speakers or presenters as audience members, we automatically have a different connotation of what we're going to experience. When I, as an audience member, hear the word speaker or presenter, I immediately think that I'm going to be somebody's going to try to sell something to me, or there is going to be a call to action, or somebody's going to try to change my mind about something. If I hear the word storyteller, I'm a little more relaxed and open-hearted and ready to listen. If I hear speaker or presenter, my guard is up and I am a lot less willing to engage. And it is an engagement. It's a conversation that's happening between the audience and the storyteller. And it's really incredible to watch. I can't wait for us to be able to do it in person again. But anyway, just wanted to mention that because I noticed a couple people throughout our talk today have been using presenter and speaker interchangeably with storyteller. And I make that distinction very carefully. But yeah, totally open to questions now as far as my experiences with this project, or what you can expect in the workshop next week. Open to anything. Also, if there's something specific that you want to see happen in the workshop next week, I'm open to that too.
Mark, it would be helpful to have more information on what to expect next week. We do have 15 signed up already, and we can have as many as 50. And
Yeah.
so if you could just give a little indication, it's from 10 to noon, I believe, Monday through Friday.
Yep.
And so, yeah, just tell us a little bit about where you plan to lead us.
Yeah, sure. So often when I ask people to engage in this process, they say, well, you know, I don't have a story to tell. And so we'll start there. We'll do some brainstorming, we'll do some free writing, and try to get your inner critic gone, and maybe get some potential material for a story. Then I'll have some story prompts, and immediately on the first day, I think it's important to start telling stories. So we'll break up into breakout rooms and do an activity that I like to call pilot co-pilot. And I'll actually send a link to an example of that, Gloria, ahead of time to you, and you can share that with registered participants. But basically, one person tells the story, the other person listens without taking any notes, and then tries to repeat that story back to the initial storyteller. Not necessarily verbatim, but in the first person, including as many details and being as accurate as possible. And then we reflect on that, and then flip that script and do the same thing with the other person. And it's a powerful tool to understand how to listen, which I think is one of the most important tools you can have as a storyteller, is being a good listener and a good observer. So we'll do that. We'll talk about story structure. We'll talk about how to engage with the listener, when to add detail, when to be more of a narrator and tell instead of show. and then we'll have lots of opportunities to go back and forth and practice a specific story that you are interested in sharing. So that's going to be the format for the week. There will be some workshops, and I'll provide some asynchronous content as well, but that's the overall view.
Gloria, just clarification, how does that differ from what might be coming up for our professional development on November 6th? Did I read something about some storytelling training on November 6th?
No, thanks for asking that, Steve. November 6th is going to be kind of a celebration of hearing some of those stories that we received training and guidance to receive. It's going to be fun. It's going to start at 11 a.m. November 6th, and it's just going to be an opportunity for the people who were in the workshop to show their stuff and to have some experience in telling their story.
Okay,
So
great.
it'll
Thank
be
you.
like a mini tell us something event essentially. And if you're interested to see, what Russ was talking about, you can see we've got 10 years worth of stories on the YouTube channel. So youtube.com/tellussomething, you can see sort of what that looks like.
Mark, would you mind, we have not met, but would you mind if I teased you a little bit?
Go ahead, Steve.
There's life on the other side of the Continental Divide, this great part of central and eastern Montana. And so
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a free invitation to come and help us tell our stories in Billings and beyond. So, and I'd be happy to get with Jim and Leslie or whomever, and we can maybe do something together with you. We got great stories to tell over here.
I'd love to. I spent some time over there, not all the way to Billings this year, but we were in 5 different rivers this summer. Did 4 days on the Missouri, and then did Missouri Breaks or the Gates of the Mountains in June. We're up in Shoto, and one of the storytellers that we had at the streaming event in September lives in Flowery. And so we're driving up near Shoto and drove right past Flowery, and I was like, hey. So yeah, no, actually I meant to get over to Billings this year or this summer, because I don't know if you went to the Yellowstone Art Museum's show, Christy Hager's show.
Oh, I did not, no.
Oh my God. If you get a chance to see that show, it's touring right now. It's currently at the Missoula Art Museum. It opened in Anaconda. It is fantastic. So it features Christy Hager. And when we were talking about the bridges earlier, I wondered if Christy had come to photograph these bridges, because she takes photographs of historic Montana bridges for the Smithsonian Institution. But she's also an accomplished artist. And she has these portraits of women that are like 4 foot by 8 foot, and it's just their heads. And they are strong women in her life. All of them she has met except for one, RBG, and they are painted on cheesecloth and hung from the ceiling. So you walk through the paintings, and it was at the Yellowstone Art Museum this summer. It's fantastic. The story I told about the Victoria, the woman who experienced sexual assault in the Marine Corps, Victoria went on, now she's in law school to deal with that population of people like her and help them. And so Christy painted Victoria's picture and hung it right behind RBG's picture.
Wow.
And it's awesome. But yeah, I've had great experiences in Billings. I've got a couple friends that live there. And yeah, I'd love to come back when it's safe to do so. Thanks for the
I will
invite.
say, this is
Yeah,
Adam.
we're working on that.
Yeah.
That exhibit is really powerful. It was really awesome when it was here
Yeah.
in Anaconda.
It was awesome. Yeah.
Mark, I just wanted to add, I'm sorry, guys. We, as we're kind of going through this experience this year together with COVID, I wanted to, instead of just dealing with the day-to-day economic development stuff that we wanted to do, kind of facts and figures and data and spreadsheets and business plans and, federal tools and PPP this and that and all that stuff we deal with. I wanted to hear the stories of the people in our community that are experiencing this different than me. And so we put together a group that we called Inspired Beyond Recovery. It's a little focus group. There's about 25 folks, and we've done it mostly Zoom meeting. And we just talk out loud about what we're experiencing together. We'll be sharing some of the findings of that focus group dialogue as a part of our annual meeting coming up next week. But I was really taken by the personal stories, some funny, some very emotional, some people who lived through COVID, went in the hospital, and what that experience was like. Chief of Police shared a story about how he's being impacted personally by watching the men and women who serve with him to protect our community. It was just a good way to hear from other people that maybe I don't engage with every day. And it really helped me understand what's the personal story behind the work I'm doing in economic development, because there is a personal story there.
Yeah, and what I'd like, my radical dream is to have events where we want to present all these facts and figures. Those are a handout. Like that's a PowerPoint that I can take home and read. But what we hear at the event are the personal stories. So that we want to read this economic impact. We want to read all these facts and figures because we remember Chief Smith at the police department or whoever it is, and we remember his story, we remember his successes or his challenges. And now we go back and we read and we pull out our checkbook or whatever, because the personal story, I think, is really what hits people here and here. And those two things working together are a powerful thing.
You know, Mark, what you just said is so perfect for the MEDA folks that are facing the upcoming legislative session. That we'll have the numbers already. We'll have the data, but you're so right. It's that personal story to tell that legislator or local leader what impact was their vote had tells way more than a statistic or a number.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that always resonated for me was when Fred Rogers appeared in front of Congress, and he had, you know, the guy he was talking to was belligerent and he did not want to listen to what Fred Rogers had to say. And Fred Rogers just told a story, and the guy was like in tears and gave him the money. You know, it was like awesome. Any other questions?
Yeah, Mark, as practitioners, we talk about our organizations or businesses that we work with, but the other side of it is our kind of community development. How do you see storytelling different from an organization or a person to a community, a town, a region? I mean, how do you philosophically look at that and how you get a point across?
So when, I don't remember if it was Adam, but from Anaconda, he was talking about the project that they won the award for. And for me specifically, and I don't know if this answers your question, but it seems like it might. When he was talking about that whole thing, what I was wanting to know is why, and I know the answer, but why did some of those businesses not want to be on the historic register? Right, and I know all the pain in the butt stuff that comes along with being on the historic register, but let's hear one of their stories, and let's hear how they got convinced to get one of those plaques on the wall. Let's hear what the impact has been of that plaque for those particular individuals, those business owners, right? I think that storytelling can be harmonious with, it's not one or the other. I think it's a harmonious thing that can go along. I don't know if that answers your question. Thanks, Brian.
Anyone else? Well, thank you, Mark.
Hey, Russ, there's a question in the chat for people who can't attend. And I don't know the answer, but he wants to know, or I didn't see who put it up. But the person who put the question up wants to know, is this going to be available, I guess, as a recording? The training next week, will it be available? If I can't come in person, can I go later to a Google Drive somewhere and watch it later?
And I think you're asking us of that.
Yeah, I'm asking Russ and Gloria.
I would hope so. It's up to, it would be great. I think I'm going to attend them all.
Yeah.
But I think it would be great to be able to go back and review things, in a few weeks after I've told my story. And
Sure.
It's something I want to continually keep refreshing.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so it'll be there. And then what I would say, if you hear that answer and say, well, then I'm not going to go. What I would say is the in-person piece of it is interactive, and you're going to get a lot more benefit by being there in person. I don't care if there's only 15 people, I get paid the same amount as if there's 90. So it's not for me that I'm encouraging you to come in person. I'm encouraging you to come for your own benefit, because you're going to really enjoy this next week.
And as another thought, all of our clients have employees who are all potential storytellers about their company or whatever. So I hope that you will consider taking advantage of talking to some of those companies that have an interest in. Mark can do this for companies large and small. And I think it could be a real benefit to helping us improve our clients' abilities.
Yeah, I mean, one of the great things about our current time right now is we are learning how to engage with this tool, Zoom. So I can cross the divide from my living room or from my office and come and provide these workshops for others. And the initial investment is minimal compared to what you would spend at a marketing team. And guess what? Everybody's got a story. Everybody's story is important, and stories are free. So if you can teach your employees, your staff members, your constituents how to tell stories about your organization, that's one of the best marketing tools you'll have.
Excellent. Again, thank you, Mark and Gloria, for putting everything together, and Russ for getting going, getting us started on this. I'd like to turn this now over to Steve, our past president, to introduce our next speaker. Steve, there we go.
I will unmute and get us started. Thanks, Brian. And I just want to comment, Mark, thank you very much for joining us today. Very inspired by your sharing. And Russ, leave it to Russ to always have us thinking outside our norm. And in fact, I think I got an email from Russ at like 5 a.m. this morning asking for us to, again, think, hey, can we be thinking different? Can we approach things different? So Russ, you hit a home run here with bringing Mark to us and the training. It was great. I appreciate it. We're going to do one kick off our series of talking to our important candidates. We'll do one today, and then I think we have several tomorrow, and maybe we wrap up with a couple of more on Thursday. And it's a great pleasure for me, and Gloria, I'm not sure, is Lieutenant Governor Mike Cooney on board with us? I don't see a picture, but maybe we can.
I am on. I see you all.
Okay, excellent. Great to see you, Mike. I really appreciate it. I'm going to do a little bit of introduction of what we're trying to accomplish today. Really, first we want to thank you for your time, because I know you're just a little busy right now. And so getting some time in your schedule, really helpful to us. Thank you very much. I also want to thank you for your service and all the work that you've been doing over the last several months. And it's been important for the work that we do in our local communities, battling COVID-19 together. So thank you for that, Mike.
Thank you.
And I will express appreciation to all of the folks and candidates, because in a certain role or from their own perspective in the office they're in, they have been helpful, and as have you. And I really thank you for that, Mike.
Thanks.
some of this you know, but we really didn't want to have a candidate forum. We wanted to have a dialogue between MEDA and folks like yourself who are running for an important office in our state. And as you know, MEDA is a group of professionals that are trained and credentialed to do economic development in Montana. Many of us have years of experience. Some of us with gray hair maybe have a few more years of experience than some of our colleagues. But we spent a lot of time and have been over the years serving our local communities. We help fill gaps. We help build bridges, figuratively and really build bridges, as we learned today. We make loans, we do training, we troubleshoot, we do planning, we provide resources and leadership that support entrepreneurship, private investment, job creation, and community development all over the state of Montana. So that's who you're having a conversation with today. And we sent out a series of just a handful of questions to kind of help with that dialogue. And so, Mike, if you don't mind, I'll just walk us through those questions, and then you're going to get a chance to kind of do a little wrap up for us at the end. If that format works for you, that's the way we'll be working today.
That's my screen just flipped. You must have, I don't know if I.
Are we ready? Oh, we're getting some troubleshooting going on here.
Troubleshooting.
That's all right. That's our life every day right now.
Oh, no, thank you. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I'm going to start with our first question, and then we'll start our dialogue together.
Yeah.
For several decades, Mike, MEDA has had a strong working relationship with the Governor's Office of Economic Development, our Department of Commerce and Labor, the Montana Board of Investment, and others. And it's been in an effort to deliver economic and community development tools and resources to businesses throughout our local communities. If elected, what will your strategy be to further this strong partnership with MEDA and to help deliver existing and future resources that will foster growth in rural and urban Montana all throughout our state?
Well, thank you. You know, I'll just say during my time in state government, you know, whether it's been as lieutenant governor or as a member of the state legislature, or when I spent my time in the Department of Labor and Industry, you know, I have trusted and relied upon the guidance and expertise of MEDA. You know, I've been very happy that I've had the relationship that I've had with the organization and the work that you do. And honestly, I've tried my darndest to make sure that we've always had a good working relationship. You know, I recently glanced through your Montana Next Generation analysis, and I found that the takeaways to be incredibly useful. And as we look into guiding guiding ourselves through the coming years and decades of growth in our state, you know, MEDA is a critical partner, and in this effort, and your work is key to ensuring we continue to build upon the solid foundation that I think Governor Bullock and I have worked so hard to build. So I've always worked well with you. I've always looked at MEDA as a partner to help us continue delivering the important services that we've been able to provide in Montana, and for all of us to grow together and to be a partner throughout this throughout our economic development and continuing to grow our economy in the state.
Mike, thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm glad you had the time. I know you're busy to go through that next gen analysis. We appreciate the study there. Investments in infrastructure and workforce are bedrock for our economic growth. Mm-hmm. In every corner of Montana, in every meeting we attend, MEDA members are continually challenged about how we properly meet both workforce and infrastructure needs for our businesses and communities. What is your plan to address these critically important issues, and how can we help partner with you on that effort? Sure.
Well, again, I mean, infrastructure is incredibly important as it relates to our economic well-being. And I think that one of the things that one of the things that we need to be mindful of is the fact that we didn't have an infrastructure plan for the state of Montana for about 10 years because the legislature couldn't come to an agreement. And last legislative session, working with Republicans and Democrats, we broke that logjam. And we were able to continue to, we were able now to start making investments in communities, whether it's their water and sewer systems, bridges and roads. Let's face it, infrastructure is so incredibly important for building the economy and continuing to move our economy in the right direction. And I will continue to work with that. Again, that's why Governor Bullock and I did work with the last legislative session and really put our minds to making sure we weren't going to walk away from another legislative session without having that critical bill passed. And it was a good way to ultimately break that logjam, and hopefully we aren't going to have to fight that battle as hard as we've had in the past. We have to continue to invest in our infrastructure and to keep the state competitive, in the 21st century economy. And that means not only investing in the water and sewer systems and the bridges and all of those things that are so important, but it also means investing in our broadband, in our connectivity in the state, and making sure that we have, the most up-to-date technology so that we can, and especially in a state like Montana that has so many rural areas. If we've learned anything in the COVID crisis, it is basically how important connectivity is, whether it's remote working, whether it's telemedicine, whether it's distance learning. I mean, we've all been very dependent on that. And we know that there are some deserts in the state of Montana where the technology isn't as good as it needs to be, or it may not even be there. And we know that that can't continue. And so I'm very concerned and very committed to working more on that. We have and I've discussed that during the campaign, how important that is. And so we have to continue to invest in our infrastructure to make it easier to do business, to make sure that our kids are able to continue to get the distance learning that they need. Even once we're past this pandemic, we know how important that is. And again, how incredibly important it is for our telemedicine and delivering medical care throughout the state of Montana, and especially in rural Montana. That's I think how we're going to keep our business and our economy moving forward, and giving people of Montana the opportunity to compete anywhere in this world, which is where the economy is moving.
Mike, thank you. I appreciate that response. I want to have you talk to us a little bit about workforce with your past role, labor and industry. And I think we all recognize that Montana had workforce challenges pre-COVID-19. Now those are taking on a different character. So how can we partner together to address workforce development opportunities and challenges in Montana?
Oh, you're absolutely right, Steve. I couldn't, when I announced my candidacy back in July of last year, we talked a lot about workforce, because one of the things that, as I sat down with people like you and other people who are on this Zoom call right now, I mean, one of the things everybody was telling me was that, look, we're having a hard time finding the type of people we need to fill the roles in the positions that we need to fill. And to me, I will just say this, state government is not a job creator. I mean, we're not. I mean, yes, we have state jobs, but really the economic drivers are the entrepreneurs, that are the Main Street businesses and the manufacturers throughout, and agriculture throughout this state of Montana. That's where the real jobs are. But when they're finding it hard to find the people who they need to fill the positions that they have to fill, that's where the state can come in and be a real partner with them. And when I was at the Department of Labor, we started working very hard, working with people in the business sector, saying, tell us what you need. And we don't need to know just now, but we need to know what your vision is into the future, so that we can have an education system that will be prepared to work with you. So whether it's our 2-year colleges, whether it's our 4-year colleges, whether it's our apprenticeship program or certificate programs, we have the ability as a state to partner with our businesses throughout the state to make sure that we are offering the types of education, the types of training, that really will prepare our young people and people in business right now, people who are working, who may want to just, create a better life for themselves by getting additional training and working their way up. we have a heck of a work ethic in this state. We have people who really do believe that work is important and they're willing to put in the time. And we need to take full advantage of it, but we need to make sure we have an education system that really does provide for us to partner with our businesses to make sure they are getting that pipeline of that workforce, not only for today, tomorrow, but into the future. And that's where I think the state of Montana can I think, be a much better partner and a more aggressive partner working with businesses. I will say we need to continue to invest in our public education system. We need a publicly funded pre-K program in Montana. We've been fighting that battle for a number of years. We're one of like 6 states that does not offer that. Right there, that would allow people to enter the workforce. And there's some very talented people out there now that have to make the choice of staying home with their children because there aren't these programs, quality programs in Montana that they have in other states. So I think a pre-K program would be a really smart step in the right direction to start getting people into the workforce that you all need. And then we need to make sure that we as a state are preparing them with the skills and the talents that they need to fill those jobs that you have. Working together with the businesses in Montana as the state will get us there. And I'm a big proponent of apprenticeship. I'll just put a pitch in right now. There's over 1,000 apprenticeable positions in the United States already recognized. And it's not just wires and pipes and wood. It's finance, it's pharmaceutical. It covers the gambit. We need to take full advantage of that, so we are preparing the workforce the way you all need it prepared in order to take and exceed in the, and to be able to fill those jobs that you're looking to fill.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. Our third question, we can all really relate to this one. We've spent the last 8 months now, and it doesn't look like there's a early end in sight, but we've been working with small businesses in our communities to adapt to COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
How can the state of Montana and our local and regional economic development organizations partner to help sustain traction in our economic recovery at a very critical time?
Well, I've tried to make this very clear, and I truly believe it. We're not going to have a healthy economy until we have healthy people. And that's why we all of us, the state, local governments, local businesses, need to be focused on how we, basically get our people healthy, keep them healthy. We need healthy customers, we need healthy workers, and without that, we cannot have a healthy economy. So I think, using the best science, we know what the best science says to us now. Wearing a mask, which has become terribly political, and it's unfortunate, but wearing a mask is the best defense against this virus. We need to get over that. We need to just be prepared to encourage people and set an example by wearing masks when we're in public, making sure that we're using proper hygiene, making sure that we're avoiding large crowds and that we're social distancing when we're around people. That is what the science tells us that we need to do in order to whip this virus. We're going to possibly have a vaccine sometime in the near future. We need a strategy, I think, and something that I want to work on starting now, how we get a strategy put together so when a vaccine comes out, we can get it and we can deploy it in Montana in the most reasonable way to get our people covered with a vaccine. I think that's another thing that we could all partner on as well. But let's face it, all of the mandates, all of the directions and directives coming from the state are only as good as the local people are willing to work with us on it. We can just look at what's happening right now in the communities that have taken ownership of this and that have empowered their health departments and empowered their sanitation people to go around and to work with businesses and to make sure they're doing following all the guidelines and so forth. We're not having huge problems there. It's those communities that it's been a little bit laid back. We talk about personal responsibility. In Montana, personal responsibility is, those people who have avoided seeing their grandkids, those people who are not attending the weddings and funerals in their family, and they're not doing that for any other reason other than they're trying to keep themselves safe and keep their community safe. That's the way we do it in Montana. That's personal responsibility. We need to make sure we're doing everything as a community of Montana to engage in this discussion and to make sure people are doing everything, proper in order to get us healthy and keep us healthy. And then we can keep then we can get our economy back up and going. You know, we've been lucky. Our economy in Montana is fairly strong as a result of, you know, compared to a lot of other states. And that wasn't done by accident. Again, that was done by building a budget, working with Republicans and Democrats 2 years ago in the legislature, not knowing that we were going to be going through a pandemic. But we were preparing for something, you know, unexpected. And our budget is pretty strong, but we still need to be mindful of where we're going as a state and how we're going to deal with things as things start to tighten up. But we, you know, our unemployment rate is one of the, you know, best in the country, and yet we need to keep it that way. But when we see these spikes and we see these problems happening, we know that it's going to have an impact. So we need to focus on getting ourselves healthy, keeping ourselves healthy, and that will be the first thing we need to do in order to keep the economy going. How can we partner? It's all of us coming together. It's all of us joining this. We know what we need to do. We need to take this virus seriously. We can't let down. We're all thick of it, but we need to make sure that we are doing everything in our power. And that means all of us coming together, working together, and using the best science. Sitting back and doing nothing and thinking that herd immunity is going to take care of it and that we're all going to just be personally responsible without having, you know, basically, you know, some guidance and directives. That's a recipe for disaster. That is what will drag this economic recovery on longer than any of us want. And so I think I'm going on a lot here because I'm very passionate about where we are and where we need to be going. We can whip this thing, and we know we can. We just got to put our minds to it, and we need to, you know, I'll just, as governor, I'll set an example as well. I'll be out there doing the right things. I'll be wearing a mask. I'll be making sure that the messaging is correct and that it's telling the right story. And I need all of you to be joining us in this effort in order to get every community to be a partner in this, and we can whip this thing.
Mike, thank you. I appreciate that. Somehow I feel as though I'll take ownership of a lot of that encouragement because in Yellowstone County, we have both opportunities and challenges that we have to work on. So thank you for that. I want to switch gears and talk about tax increment financing. It is one of the small set of tools that are available to local communities throughout the state, and it provides a mechanism for leveraging private investment that is critical to our economic development. How familiar are you with tax increment financing, and can we count on your support in continuing this valuable tool for our community development?
Yeah, thank you. You know, honestly, I've never understood really the challenges to the TIF programs that we've had in the state, because I do think they are an incredibly valuable tool. We fought this battle in the last legislative session where there were a number of attempts to limit or to do away with the tax increment districts and finance districts. And so I will tell you, answer your question very clearly. Yes, you have me as an ally. I think it's a valuable tool that local communities can use, and it encourages positive growth and development. And why would we not want to keep that tool in our toolbox and allow the communities to use it? They've done it wisely. There's been great results, and I think that we need to get that battle behind us. And as governor, you would not have to worry about my turning my back on that.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. I would talk to my colleagues who are on the call today, and I don't know how many we have now. We have 70 of us on the call today, Mike. So I'm going to go through our next question. I think there'll be a little slice of time for my colleagues maybe to weigh in with some follow-up dialogue with you, and then we're going to give you a chance to close. So we have question 5, and you already gave us a head start on this because you've read the next generation analysis. But in 2019, in the fall of that year, going into 2020, MEDA partnered with, I actually think, over 70 or 75 organizations and businesses, including the Montana Chamber Foundation, to conduct a comprehensive analysis that we titled Montana Next Generation Analysis, Community and Economic Development Tools. This work helped to identify opportunities to take our community and economic development tools and strategies to another level, comparing Montana to neighboring states with varying political leadership and unique initiatives related to workforce, infrastructure, community development, talent, retention and attraction, public-private partnerships, and new business recruitment. To stay competitive, Montana needs innovative approaches to how we respond to these opportunities. In that context, now here's the question. They wrote all that script out for me so I would stay on point, Mike. It's not you, it was all about me staying on track. In that context, how can MEDA partner with you to support innovation in our community and economic development strategies and tools?
Yeah, no, thank you, and I appreciate the background to that question. And let me just say that I've spent my entire career working closely with economic developers from across the state to make real positive changes and spur the growth that we need to continue thriving. MEDA is an incredibly important partner, and I plan to continue to work closely with you as governor to implement the good ideas in the Montana Next Generation analysis. We've done a good job, and Governor Bullock and I have worked hard to build the foundation strong enough, to weather the COVID crisis, as I just mentioned. And as we've discovered, I will look, to the innovative work you do to identify new strategies, bringing together community and economic leaders, and to improve our state's competitiveness. I mean, that's what we need to do. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't have all the answers, and I know that each and every one of you don't have all the answers, but when you bring people to the table to work together, regardless of party affiliation or any of that stuff, because once the election's over, let's just get to work. That's how we get things done. And the next generation analysis cites the need to be strategic about our growth. Continued diversification. Incredibly important that we have that we remain very diversified. States that don't suffer when those economies really start to flounder. We need diversification, and that needs to give us the stability and the certainty, and we need to retain the workforce we need while making sure that we take the steps to keep Montana the wonderful place that it is, and it attracts folks from all around the world and all around our country. And that's something we can't forget. I mean, we talk about our outdoor economy. As I've talked to innovators around the state, one of the things they've said is Montana being what it is an incredibly useful tool. We can attract the workforce we need. We keep them. We retain the workforce we need because people love the quality of life that we have here. So we can't forget that. Plus, our outdoor economy continues to grow in our state, and there's great growth opportunities there as well. So it not only helps businesses, innovators, manufacturers, all of those things in our state just because we are who we are. And we've seen that even during the pandemic, the interest of people coming in and engaging with our state during the pandemic. So, I guess just number one, I look forward to working with all of you as we modernize our state and to build the tools and the resources our communities need to thrive in the next, in the future, and to thrive in the 21st century economy that we have. So, that's, I look forward to it. Continuing, I mean, again, I think most of you, even if you haven't worked with me directly, you know about me, you know where I've been. I've always been willing to work with you, to be a part of your programs any way I can, because I do think that relationship is so incredibly important with all of you as we build the future of Montana's economy.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. I think we have time for one of my colleagues, not sure who. Gloria, you be the monitor and figure out who raises their hand first. And we'll start with one follow-up question for you, and then see if we have what our time looks like from there. Anybody?
I haven't even gotten through my first cup of coffee, so you're really putting me to the challenge here. But
no, you're doing great. I think we're good, and I don't see any follow-ups. Gloria, you see any hands raising or comments in the chat or anything?
I think Tracy's looking for her mute button.
Okay, Tracy, go for it. You got.
So, Mike, thank you so much for joining us, and I really appreciate it. I know in your policy you talked about broadband a lot, and you mentioned the word cooperatives. As the Cooperative Development Center and the Council of Cooperatives, I would be interested in understanding how you're going to incorporate what they're doing across the state in the work that you're proposing.
Sure. Well, I think when we talk about expanding the broadband capabilities throughout the state, it's got to be a partnership. It's going to have to be a partnership with the federal government. And I know that I've talked a lot with Senator Tester about this and his interest in driving a program through Congress to help states financially with this plan. But we also have to look at all of the other folks involved in broadband. Cooperatives are certainly a part of it, and other telecommunication parts of the industry. The state can't do this without a partnership. I'm just going to tell you that right now. And so it's going to be all of us sitting down, developing a strategy and looking at, what tools do we have at our disposal? How do we finance something like this? But we know what the challenges are. We know we do have some areas in the state that are true deserts. We also have some areas in the state that are incredibly, wired in. I mean, we're very fortunate, but it's not across the board, and it's not equal, and we need to make sure that we're giving everybody in Montana, no matter where they live, the opportunity to be able to participate and to enjoy that technology, whether it's for business, education, or healthcare. Those are the three big areas. So, let me give you just one quick example. I've had the opportunity to visit a number of rural communities as Lieutenant Governor. One of the communities we stopped in and visited was Troy, Montana, up in the northwest corner of the state. And we didn't sit there and say, here's what you need to do. We said to them, tell us what you want to do as a community. What is important to you? And one of the first things they talked about was the fact they have a real problem with connectivity. And it's everything from education to commerce to even healthcare. And so, as a state, we can't come in and solve their problem under the current situation. One of the things we did do is we reached out to a company that we knew was working with rural communities to help them address this need. The company was Deloitte. We contacted them, hooked them up with the folks up in Troy, and they flew people in from all around the country on numerous occasions to sit down with the community, to work out a strategy, to look at, okay, these are the things that you need to do in order to start developing a plan to address this. And then they started looking at what the different financial options they may have to help them do it. So Troy is now on the path of trying to address this, working with the private sector as a result of the state bringing this party together to get them working on it. That's, if we can answer the Troy issue, there may be a really good model out there that can be employed in other areas of the state. Now, that's just one example of how you try to you think of things a little bit differently. You realize you can't do everything yourself, so you find the partnerships to bring in, sit down at the table and start making progress. We need to do that on a statewide level. We need to deal with it with all of the partners that we have throughout the state that are engaged in telecommunications and the federal government and the state government and local governments. That way we can crack this thing and we can make real progress in addressing this. And I'm committed. It's so important. I'm committed to put a lot of effort and energy into this as governor, so we can, in the first 4 years of an administration, we can basically show incredible progress. That's my goal.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you. And thank you, Tracy, for your question. We are about at the wrap-up point. We want to give you a little bit of time. I will throw in this on broadband. There are unique issues in the urban centers in Montana related to broadband, in addition to rural Montana. And I'm just thinking of the mom who's sitting in a neighborhood in my very own community who now has to help their youngster study online, and maybe they're not in a position to afford the connection they have or whatever it might be. So this is a shared opportunity and challenge throughout the state, both urban and rural parts of our state, but fundamentally important for all of us. I think we'd all raise our hand and say, let's get to work on that. So we appreciate it. Mike, we're going to give you a few minutes to just share some wrap up. If you have questions for us, we're happy to try and answer those. however we want to use the last few minutes, we'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you. And I very much appreciate it. And Gloria, I thank you. And Steve, I thank you very much. And everybody who has worked to put this together for all of us to keep Montana's economy vibrant and strong. You know, MEDA is a critical component of our state's economic landscape. And we have worked, I think, incredibly well together over the years. And I've always been grateful for your support and partnership. This is a challenging time for our state and for our country. The COVID crisis has put us on our heels. And, you know, there's just no doubt about it. But we will, I feel strongly that we will emerge from this stronger when we get on the other side of this thing. We're going to beat this virus. We are. And working hand in hand, we're going to go ahead and get Montana businesses and the workforce and the infrastructure and the certainty that they need. So as your next governor, I'll bring Republicans and Democrats together to get Montana businesses the tools and the resources that they need to bounce back stronger and more resilient than ever and create more good paying jobs for the working women and men of this state. So I just say, I look forward to working with you to get it done. And I very much appreciate having the opportunity to visit with you. And I'll just say, please, please stay safe, stay healthy, and make sure you wash your hands and do everything you're supposed to. We got to get through this thing. We got to get these cases down, and we'll get our economy back up and running. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Appreciate your encouragement as well. Thank you for joining us today.
So much.
Take care. Brian, I will turn it back to you.
Again, thank you, Mike, and thank you, Steve, for doing that very professionally instead of me rambling on. We have somebody right to it. And I wanted to thank Tracy for jumping on the broadband question. That's just hitting all of us. Again, urban and rural, it's a big deal, and there's a lot of changes coming in the near future. So when I look at the agenda, Gloria, it looks like we have some awards Q&A, kind of wanting to go back to what we were doing. And the first thing I want to do is apologize to everybody over in Billings. Deborah pointed out very quickly that when I stated the Colson Park project was the old Correct plant, I should have said adjacent to the Correct plant, because I looked at a article a couple of years ago and then I just blended the two together, and I stand corrected. So again, I love what you guys are doing there. We've got a super fun site in East Helena. Just hearing, maybe that's a question to you and Steve and maybe some of your staff. How does that work? I mean, how do you balance the time frame that it takes? Because you know the community wants that area along the river there to improve, but it takes time. I mean, maybe my question is, how do you work on the painting the picture of the what actually the time frame that is going to happen on something like that?
I'm going to let Patrick, who I think is still on, kind of carry that. He's our project leader on that. There's obviously a relationship between Colson Park, which was an undeveloped park property by the city, and what we hope may happen in the future with the Correct site. We just don't own or control that. So we're trying to inspire some creative thinking. I'll let Patrick take it from there.
Thanks, Steve. And that's a great question, Brian, that you provide. And when we looked at this, as I said before, kind of our strategic priority through the Board of Economic Development, we've seen this as an incredible opportunity since 2017, and to be able to find those funds to be able to make that a reality. And kind of what we thought and what we learned with the Correct plant and the operational no longer being in use. Well, as Steve said, we don't own the ownership to that, but what we said is that adjacent to it is a 55-acre park that's undeveloped, that we have an opportunity to put our best foot forward as a city and as a community to be able to, again, capitalize on that incredible local asset that we have, and to be able to make that space and turn it into a place, make it a destination for not only our residents, but really non-residents alike, with all the different opportunities with the aquatic recreation as well as built-in recreation, to be able to have that. And we want to be able to, again, put our best foot forward to be able to develop that park, start in the construction, and then we see the opportunity of the Correct plant and the opportunities with potential ownership in the future to be able to collaborate with them and make that an additional larger community asset to Billings.
Again, thank you, Patrick. I can see it that we're all trying to eat that elephant one bite at a time, but it's so easy to wrap in those properties that we don't hold fee title to, but everybody knows it's part of the solution. It's how do you manage those things to get there? And again, it's a big elephant. Do we have other questions for all of our great award winners? And reminding everybody that next year we're going to double this, if not triple it. If Brett was here, he would be poking us on that again.
Brian, while there's a little pause, I want all the award winners to know they will be receiving an official award in the mail. And we will update the perpetual awards boards that are on the wall in the Governor's Office of Economic Development.
Perfect. Always taking care of us. Any other questions specifically on a few of those? Kind of see if there's any other.
Brian, I have a question on the Space to Place. This is a project that similar to the ones that Accelerate Anaconda does, and I might have missed, how do you pay for that? How Accelerate, we'll put on an event and raise the money, and then we'll go work on a project, and then, oh, we got to stop and raise some more money and then go to work on a project. But maybe there's an easier way. How does Big Sky afford Space to Place?
We have a fund for it. I mean, it's in our budget each year, a certain amount for Space to Place projects, and we basically fund them grants up to $5,000. And
if we put a little bench and honored Big Sky Economic Development, would you put us in your budget? Adam made me ask that. Adam made me ask that.
Well, I will answer that question, Gloria. I consider myself a honorary resident of Anaconda via my wife's hometown heritage there. So talk to me personally about a bench.
All right.
But you guys got great benches around the commons right now. You've done some really cool work there. I love Anaconda. It's all awesome. Good job.
That is a good question, though, is show me the money. Where does the money come? We all see these beautification projects as being so important. And where does it come from? The cash, because you can get the slave labor at times to do some of the work. There's a little bit of cash that needs to be there. Any other questions for our Ignite award winners?
I had a question, Brian, about the Anaconda Business District historic sign. There was mention that there was a state program that lowered the cost of the signs.
Yeah, there is. And Tia really runs that, so I'm not sure who the contact is at SHPO, but I could certainly get that to Gloria to send everyone. I think that we only pay $45, and then the program with the state is paying the rest to get them printed.
That sounds great. And then we just send the invoice to Steve over in Billings, right?
Exactly.
I like it.
I like it. Why everybody?
Okay, let me stop this train for a second. I have a question for Jim Atchison. Recognition, well-deserved, Jim, but I'd like to know how you doing. How are things? How goes your work? You and I haven't had a chance to talk in a while. Can you give us a quick update from the Colstrip area? Tell us how you're doing on all of your challenges and the things you're working on.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate that. Yeah, there's a lot of projects going on, a lot of challenges. Basically 3 different levels or different criteria groups. First of all, the war on coal that started about 4 or 5 years ago continues, and we're dealing with the loss of units 1 and 2. numerous lawsuits. The mine is doing better. They just received a permit, so we're kind of hanging in there. The loss of jobs have been somewhat minimized because of attrition and retirements and skillfully moving people into other areas. So we haven't really lost a lot of jobs, even though we have lost some. Nothing like Wyoming or Gillette with hundreds and hundreds of jobs lost in one day type of thing. But the diversification efforts that started about 3-4 years ago have kept us jumping, and that's what I was alluding to with the staff. And we've hired John Rogers to help us with that. Been very supportive with EDA and other federal funding and state funding to help us with a lot of PERs and PARs and studies. And that was one thing that Julie was talking about too. So I don't know how many projects we have right now, but there's probably 6 alone going on in Colstrip to help diversify the economy, from broadband we've been talking about to a regional marketing plan, a business improvement innovation center, and some other things like that. So we're very encouraged with that, but it's frustrating because we're right in that study period right now where everything is getting studied, and it's all going to hit at once, of course, and it has been. So we're hanging in there. But the other one, of course, is COVID, which has hit everybody. And of course, it's certainly a concern because we're seeing small businesses like everybody else being impacted dramatically throughout the 4-county region that we cover. So we're the same as that. But we're looking forward to the next couple years as diversification efforts and projects kick in. We have, like I said, an awesome staff and some John Rogers on board to help us. And so we're kind of hanging in there as far as that goes. We'll see, Steve, down the road. But one thing I did like to mention real quick is we had a very special visit 10 days ago, and many of you may know this, but the Secretary of the Department of Energy, cabinet official, was in Colstrip and spent a few hours here with his staff. Very big visit, and we kind of equate that to planting seeds for future harvest. And so we're not quite sure some of these energy projects, diversification, value-added energy, we're not quite sure what those will entail, but we have 4 or 5 companies actively looking at relocating to the Colstrip area, which is very exciting, but very stressful and work intensive. So I think in the next year to 2 years, we'll kind of see how that all folds out. And so I'm cautiously optimistic about the future. Yes, coal will continue to be part of our portfolio, but not as big. But we do have some renewables and some other value-added energy opportunities percolating on the horizon. So thank you for asking, Steve. And once again, what happens in Colstrip affects Billings and a lot of revenue accounts in Helena as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Steve, for that good question. Anything else for our members that you see up on the screen? And while you're thinking of that, I wanted to thank the fall conference team that came together to kind of put this together. I did want to give everybody a quick shout out. Both Ladd and Charles from USDA, very helpful having our partners there. Sarah, we always love you and like to have you on these conversations, and Jim being on here, and Tony took a lot of leadership on this, which really did help getting it out there. And Russ bringing our speaker together, the idea of tell us something is always beneficial. Any additional questions for the group?
If I could ask another one, Brian, I think Mary Sexton is on with the Shoto Area Port Authority, and looking at community development, MEDA did have a fabulous team go in for the Shoto Area Community Review, but I'm curious to ask Mary, we're hearing with Reimagining Rural that there's such a burnout with STP, the same 10 people, the same tired people, and I just want to ask Mary if she has seen, if that's the case in Shoto, is it the same 10 people, or has she somehow been able to build the capacity of the volunteers to get all the stuff done that Kappa has been able to get done.
Well, thank you for that question. Can you hear me all right? I undid my mute. Okay. You know, because our projects are diverse, for example, the tourism and recreation, yeah, that is the same 10 people. But the infrastructure, that really has included our city council and other folks, so that was kind of a different group. The childcare that we're working on now really is another group in and of itself. I think it's attracting a lot of younger people because we want younger people to come to Shoto and be able to have jobs, which they do. Our schools really are supportive of the childcare because they have younger teachers who have children and there's no place for their children. So I think that having a diversity of projects has helped us to get newer folks involved. But it, you know, the same basic group is still there, and some of us are getting kind of tired. So it's, you know, we hope that there will be other folks that come up into leadership positions.
Thanks, Mary.
Yes, very good to hear that excitement coming out of Shoto right now. Are there any other questions? If not, Gloria, do you want to roll the next screen talking about tomorrow morning? Steve is going to moderate again. We're going to have a big day of talking to our partners. So first thing in the morning, bright and early, everybody, 8 o'clock, we'll have a conversation with Senator Daines and then gubernatorial candidate Gianforte. Then we're going to have a conversation about our next gen development tools with panel members who had actively were working on it. Our virtual Ignite, and Gloria, we might have you just mention a little bit about what we're going to do there, and then our two House candidates a little bit later starting at 11. So Gloria, would you tell us a little bit about that virtual Ignite?
Yes, similar to our awards presentations this morning, each group is going to have about 3 minutes. We were just going to do a drawing, which we still will, but about 4 people have said, oh, please pick my number, please pick my number. So it's melded into a by chance and on purpose virtual Ignite. So it's going to be good.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. So again, anything else? The one thing I do want to do is I'll go back to our sponsors, our membership sponsors, Montana Cooperative Development Center, Cushing-Terrell, Lake County Community Development Corporation, KLJ, Montana Department of Transportation are all bronze members. Then there's Newfields and Montana Youth Apprenticeship Partnership are our silver members, and good old Northwestern Energy being a gold member for our membership sponsors again.
Brian, just some technical info. We got off to a rough start. Some of you that had your original registration linked, it had no problem, but about 30 people didn't have that. And so Brenda Schilling, Russ Fletcher, some of you saved the day. I think we had 10 Brenda Schillings on the call today. And so I learned you can't register someone while a meeting is going on. And so I will send out foolproof going around the registration link to everyone. But why I'm sharing all this is it took about 15 minutes to get everyone up to speed. And so we can't do that tomorrow, because the forum starts right at 8 and we have our other candidate right at 8:30. So please do log in early. I will send you an email later today and first thing in the morning that is correct, and we'll get started right at 8.
Gloria, if that's as bad as it is, I've seen a few of these large Zoom meetings go sideways very, very badly. So if that's as bad as it gets, that isn't bad.
Well, ours was just a little tipsy for a little bit there.
You're out of square, as some people put it. Again, is there anything else for the greater good? Again, I think this is a great start to our fall conference, everyone. And again, thank you, Jim, for all of your work throughout the years and everything you do out there in Eastern Montana for the great people of Colstrip.
Thank you.
And again, all of the members that were working on the fall conference subcommittee, again, thank you. And Tony keeping us in direction and online, even though you had a few technical failures on a couple of our meetings or issues, but that's still good. We got it done. And Steve, thank you for stepping in and kind of taking that moderation for the candidates. We need somebody very professional, and sometimes people don't like my bald head going forward, so that isn't always what we need. Gloria, is there anything else that we need for tomorrow?
Yes, for the record, notice we are 10 minutes ahead of schedule. That's a record.
Yeah, trying to keep everybody on task here. And again, thank you everybody for joining bright and early tomorrow, a little bit brighter, a little bit earlier, and we can go from there.
Thanks, everyone.
Again, thank you.
Thanks, Gloria.
Good work.
Thank you.